to the Sad Dads Club podcast. Here's everybody's favorite sad dads, Jim and Foo.
Sad Dads Club podcast, episode 317. I'm the Lord Foo.
And I am disappointed, but Jim.
Disappointed,
I'm Jim.
Jim?
Yeah.
This is the post-election.
Is it
first post-election podcast?
Is it a post-election or a post-debacle? Because that's how it feels.
Yes. And I'm uncorked. I'm gonna come uncorked.
We have steered away. I'd say some shit here and there.
Right.
We have steered away from politics on this show. This show is now 6 years old.
Yes.
And we have kind of steered away from politics. It started mid-Trump.
Probably. Yeah.
I want to say first term.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So
we hit to the... Oh, you're talking when we started the podcast.
When we started the podcast,
yes.
It was mid-Trump's
yes.
first term. So, like 2 years into his first term.
Yeah, I guess it was.
Yeah, 6 years,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because we just started our 7th season.
Right.
And we
steer clear, and a lot of that...
tried, yeah.
Yes. So I guess it's fair to explain where that for me, I guess there's this, like the anxiety of offending someone or getting into some sort of conflict or argument of someone where I feel like I have to defend my perspective. But also, there's this small fairy that sits in the back of my mind that's like, yeah, but what happens if someone like wanted to sponsor the show and then had to right?
It's not happening.
It's not happening.
And honestly, I'm a little less inclined to give fucks than you have.
Right. And
that's why we haven't typically.
Sure. And a lot of too, right?
Yeah.
I guarantee that even you and I may not see eye to eye on every single thing.
And that's perfect.
And that is totally fine.
I'm fine with that.
I will go to the mat to say that that's an important thing to surround yourself with, because you should be able to have those conversations in a constructive manner.
We don't have to be the same mindset.
Right. So then yesterday, let's see. How do we start that? Somewhere after work, I was avoiding most of the stuff because I knew when polls closed, and
Well, let me ask you this: when did you actually vote?
We walked over to Mahaney on Sunday evening.
Okay.
And dropped off our ballots.
We took ballots last night to Rockland, to the actual Placer County.
Oh, okay. The live poll.
Wherever
they had a facility that took it, and did they do your scanning right there?
I think so. It's the Placer County elections office or whatever. And there was like a line of cars with a tent and people taking them and giving you your stickers.
Oh, okay.
And so that's where we went.
They had, at least in my absentee ballot pamphlet, they had locations like Mahaney that were scattered around that took drop-offs 24 hours a day. Sure. But then they also had, which I think was new for this election, locations that did have hours that you could take your absentee ballot and get it scanned live right there so that your vote could be counted right there, right then.
Oh, I'm okay. I think in the last election, we dropped our ballots off at the Nugget Market.
Okay.
And they just have a drop box inside the Nugget, which felt safe. It's in a business, right? In this case, we had dropped ballots off at one other election. I want to say 2020. At this location, and no one was there.
Yeah.
There might have been one other car dropping off, but it wasn't the fanfare that we saw in this election.
Okay.
There was a line of cars just waiting to turn into the parking lot.
Wow.
and a pop-up tent near the drop box. And there were 4 people out there, and 2 of them were actually emptying the drop box when we were there to like take them in and count them.
Yeah.
So it was maybe more awareness that facility was available to people.
Okay.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
But it was noticeably busier.
And that could be participation up. It could be latecomers to
Right.
But encouraging to see people voting.
Yeah.
But I would just set that bar.
Now, running up to the election, there was a lot of excitement and hope.
Yes.
And that was quickly dashed last night.
Yeah.
I hadn't. We went and voted, and we came home, or voted. We went and dropped off our ballots. We could have just gone down the street to the junior high.
Yeah.
To Buljan.
Yeah.
But
Buljan.
we decided to go to if Shannon wanted to go to the thing. Fine, let's go do the thing.
Yeah.
So we came home so Melly could change. She was still in scrubs. And then we went to the Galleria. They wanted to do a couple things at the Galleria. And then we just had dinner at the food court, which we don't do very often. But part of it was I could tell people were anxious.
Yes.
People being my wife and daughter and myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were all sort of like dragging our feet a little bit, like not really wanting to like go home and flip on the TV and find out what was going on, because you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
But then while walking through the Galleria, I made the mistake of launching news.
Right.
And I went, fuck. What?
Right.
What is happening?
Do you know roughly what time that was?
That had to have been maybe around 7-ish, 6-ish, somewhere in that neighborhood. And it was like you could sort of feel the air coming out of a balloon at that point.
Yeah.
And I was like, shit. And when the girls, because I was like hanging around out in the mall, and the girls had gone into a store that I didn't care to go into, so I was just hanging around outside.
Yeah.
And then they came out. I'm like, well, I just made the mistake
of
checking my phone, and then I was reminded about there was the red mirage, and then the blue wave or tsunami.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that still could be the case, because that's how it typically works.
Right.
And that never, ever materialized. And
right. Yeah. I spent probably from Sunday, and I'm going to say during my lunch break, of course, during my lunch break, I spent a good amount of time looking over and doing the researches on the California propositions. Most of the candidates I actually didn't have a lot of details on. So the education board stuff that were local things, I did deep dives on those most of Sunday. And then now I'm doing election day prep. So then I started looking at, the forecasts and the polls of the presidential races and the Senate races and the House races. And the modeling data on Sunday was very concerning to me.
Right.
And I went,
oh no.
I don't know if I want to dig too much further, because hope, right?
I feel like that polling data made some drastic swings over the last couple of weeks for whatever reason.
It may, and there certainly wasn't, because they talk about like October surprise, and like there were minor gaffes.
Yeah.
The whole Puerto Rican thing in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
But there was nothing that was like a Oh, that's
problematic.
That's a big pile of shit, and that's the game.
Well, there was lots of big piles of shit, and anything coming out of the Trump campaign was often big piles of shit.
Right. To anyone with a
brain.
Right. So I stopped.
Anyone with cognitive
right.
ability.
So I started to see.
Let me rephrase.
Yeah, not red flags, but certainly yellow flags, and
yeah.
I went into. I don't want to know. I don't want to know anymore. I want to hold on to the hope part. So Monday, I cast the ballot was out, and I'm feeling good. And Tuesday, I'm getting ready. And then as we got somewhere about midday, I realized, fuck, man, Tuesday was also busy at work. I'm like, man, as soon as polls start closing on the East Coast, man, my go-to in the last couple of elections where I was really like as a tick, like in the system, I used Twitter. Like the instantaneous updates and polls and forecasting and decision desk stuff was way more digestible in a Twitter format. So now I'm finding myself going back into X, trying to unfollow and mute any entity that I had in my legacy thing that was not politics related, because if you go into that platform now, it's ads this, ads that. Like the last thing I wanted, I wanted my politics curated feed as best as possible.
It's almost like you need profiles in there. One profile is these followers, and one profile is these followers.
Right. At this point, that's probably... So I felt like going into about 3 to 4 o'clock Pacific time, I was playing catch-up like, okay, I know polls are closing, fuck. And then I get busy with work, and I'm like, I got to take a break so I can fucking keep this thing. And then what I'm trying to do also is double dip Threads followers of my X followers and Instagram followers of politics and news feeds of my X and Threads followers. So that way I'm trying to not miss anything. And then I finish off the rest of my workday. That's 6 o'clock. And by 6 o'clock, we start getting data, and it was like, the obvious states that were obvious were starting to get called.
Right.
I'm not too concerned, but in the back of my head, I've got the odds and the forecasted models are not in her favor.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking for certain things to at least match a Biden-Trump like percentage and thing from early. Is it about me? Oh, I missed it. To match some of those things. But realistically, it was like too early. And Xander, he hits his like homework time off cutoff for the network and his fun time. And it was a gym day. And I realized, you know what? I need to get out of the house. Otherwise, I'll be here all evening if you allow me to. So I'm like, it's a gym night. Let's go. We go to the gym. Obviously, I don't take my glasses in, so that way everything on the fucking TVs is out of focus. And you can see everyone's pretty much doing the big board thing with the electoral college stuff and the counties and the pulling up and the Zooms in Georgia. And there was a lot of focus on Georgia and the early results coming out of Georgia, and a lot of red. And I went, I'm trying to not see that, but that's starting to get concerning. Not because it was red, and obviously it's the South, and it's probably intended to be red, but in going to that CrossFit space at Planet Fitness, I can then see the screens and the numbers were way overbalanced to the other guy. And I went, shit. So we finish workout, we come home, Xander hits the shower. I beeline right to the computer. I've got Washington Post, AP, 538, New York Times.
Man, you're much braver than I am.
And I can't remember the third one. It might have been a Bloomberg map.
I couldn't do it.
I hit refresh. I saw the obvious Electoral College numbers. And the, I think Washington Post, my Washington Post map, nope, it was Decision Desk, had a county by county breakdown. And at the time I was selected on Georgia, and it was like, no, it's not happening out of Georgia. It was not going to happen. And knowing, if you're anyone that's been paying any attention to the forecasting, Georgia was one of, you got to have it.
Yeah, there were multiple ways to get
it
there,
was like,
but it
plan
was
A is this, plan B could be this,
right.
But your option,
Pennsylvania,
right?
whatever.
But there was certainly Georgia was something that you wanted to retain to give you a buffer because it was a flip in the past, and it was like, well, that one's off the map; it's gone. There's no way the numbers just won't add up from. And at that point, I went,
yes,
this is not.
I think that's about the point where we got home and we had turned on the TV for a bit and we were watching it. And I'm like, this is not looking. And that's about the same time.
It was about 7 o'clock was like the
good.
end time. And I went, my heart is telling me this isn't happening.
Yeah.
There were some like blue mirage stuff from the news feeds I saw of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Minnesota going blue and then going purple and then going red. And I went, that's not going to happen. Nevada, I had written off as a 100% 50-50. I still don't know which way Nevada went. It doesn't matter because it doesn't matter. Arizona, I didn't care about. Knowing that Georgia was gone, it was, well, Pennsylvania has to be. And somewhere about 7:30, the early stuff from Pennsylvania was like, you're not going to make up those numbers.
Nope.
And I went, fuck.
Yeah.
And at that point, that was, I think I finally called it at 8 for me.
Yeah.
I can't do the death spiral. And I think you and I touched base maybe somewhere about 9:30.
Yeah.
And at that point, Xander, I made dinner for Xander. I hadn't showered yet from the gym because I had been dabbling in the thing. And I called no joy. But now I was trying to make myself busy by cooking dinner for Xander and then getting a snack for myself. And I sat down while Xander was eating his dinner in the living room, and I turned on the TV, and I went, no, I can't do this.
No.
So I pulled up YouTube, and when you and I touched base, I was watching a Dungeons & Dragons campaign of a UK, a real nice like UK, they did like a Kickstarter of a campaign. Real nice people. It's like a mix and mash of people who are veterans and some new players, so it's a good way to get exposure to seeing how new people also play the game. So I was just like, I'm mindless. I just need to detox because I know what's coming.
I think I had kicked on a Netflix series I'd never heard of called Daybreak. Sort of an apocalyptic thing with kids.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Yeah. Like
not super
Flies?
good, but interesting.
Yeah.
Yes. Very
Really?
Lord of the Flies-ish.
Oh, see, I like those kind of things. Plus, at some point, Piper was extremely busy with homework, and she would come out, and she would go, I'm getting stressed. And I went, yeah, there's a ways to go. And then Venus, I don't know what her feed intake was like, if she was looking, but she would kind of like, in passing, check in with me, and I would just kind of give her it's not looking good. Like I don't think so. And then when you've got the modeling data that was like, you have to hit this, this, and this, and knowing the percentages, and none of that is starting to hit.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, oddly enough, I don't know if you saw any of the gambling sites that were doing bets. They were spot on. So if you're looking for an indicator of who's probably got the edge in some of these political elections going forward,
I would have never thought
if
to
the
look
gambling, oh yeah, gambling sites were starting to call races almost 20 to 30 minutes earlier than
Really?
news sites and nailing it. And I went, fuck me. When the gambling guys have dialed it in, money's on the line. Like, they're not fucking around. Whatever they've got the widgets.
bonkers.
You and I touched base. That was before 10 o'clock, I think. And somewhere near 9:45, 10 maybe, I finished my my YouTube thing, and I straight up went into the bedroom and I said, I'm going to bed. And Venus went, I can't go to bed. I'm not tired. And I went, I'm going to go to bed. And knowing there's nothing I can do, and all I would do would just increase my blood pressure and anxiety over knowing the slow, like, death by spoon that was going to happen. Like, it was inevitable at this point.
Yeah. I was watching that show, and the girls both disappeared. And at one point, I turned around and looked, and our bedroom was dark, and I went, "Is she fucking go to bed?" And then Shanna came out of the room in her pajamas, and walked across the house to see Melanie. And she told me tonight that she was talking to Melanie, kind of tucking her in.
Yeah.
And Melanie was in tears.
Yeah.
And then she decided to go to bed, and I was so distraught, anxious, that I sat and watched way too much of that show, probably like a couple episodes worth, with this gear spinning in the back of my head, like not really being able to get rid of it, of what the fuck.
Right.
The what the fuck gear.
Right.
And finally, I think about 11:20 or so, I finally turned it off and went to bed, to just go and lay in bed.
Yeah.
And not be able to sleep for a while.
Yeah.
And then even after I did go to sleep, waking up several times and still having the what the fuck gear going on in my head.
Yeah.
After I've woken up from sleep.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, very unsettling.
Well, I think, and when I went to bed near 10, my watch was at like 33%. I'm like, fucking, I don't have to charge it. So I went, before I finally laid down, I went and put my watch on the charger. And then I went to bed. I think I coaxed Venus by my sleeping. She followed me roughly about half an hour later. Finally, the lights went off. Somewhere about midnight.
Yeah.
I'm going to say meat sweats, but it wasn't meat sweats. Election sweats. I got up, but didn't look at anything and realized, my watch is probably charged. So I walked into the office. I didn't look at anything. I just grabbed my watch, put it on, undid my pin, and then went to bed hoping that my watch wasn't going to be like, ba-bling, ba-bling. I immediately turned it into theater mode.
Yeah.
And I laid back down. I must have passed out because somewhere about 2, I was awoken with mortars. Boom. Like fireworks.
Really?
From someone off in, Fittyman.
Magaland?
Yeah, right. Cucuriolo, like that space down there.
Okay, wow.
Like the guys that are typical to do the illegals.
Mm-hmm.
That hate the illegals.
Sure.
Right.
Right.
And I went,
Checks out.
Fuck. Okay. Yeah. So it's a lock at this point. Someone's lighting off fireworks. It's a lock, and I pulled up the phone to see AP News has called it for Pennsylvania 4. AP News has called Wisconsin 4. AP News has called Wisconsin. And I went, or not Wisconsin, Michigan or Georgia or whatever it was.
Ohio
like in North Carolina, all of the
Yeah.
ones that had to haves.
Yeah.
And I went, fuck. At that point, I spent probably an hour doing the gears, like, how? What? Now what? How does this, and what does this mean to the, I passed out probably for another like hour and a half. I ended up turning on my, the heart rate monitor, and every once in a while, this works for me. I will turn it on to watch the heart rate, and then I try to do like the whole Navy SEAL breathing where you in 6 and out 6 seconds to see how low I can get it. And a lot of times
You just pass out.
Yeah, I hyperventilate and I black out, especially if I hold my breath for 30 seconds at the end of it. I just black out.
Right.
Somewhere about 4, and I kind of knew this was going to happen because I actually went to bed at 10. I'm like, I'm going to get up early. Somewhere about 4, I got up. And
I feel like we were up at the same exact times.
Yeah, and I was, the cogs were going again, and at that point, while I hadn't looked at my phone, I walked into the office and I closed all of the tabs that were up without looking at. I just
Ding, ding, ding.
whatever, they weren't refreshed anyway. I just
Yeah.
ding, closed them all, and I sat in my office chair, kind of just like
Bewildered.
yeah, just like the non-stare at anything. You're just kind of like awake, but not like, and I just started writing stuff on a notepad, with the 100% intent that at some point I was going to need to say the things that we dodge here because I'm worried about offending someone. And it was, as I was writing, it was something that we've talked about this at length here a number of times, and everyone's, I'm sure my dad, well, he's probably got a shit memory anyway because he's old as shit. So it probably helps to keep telling him the same story. But it is that when I'm asked about what this podcast is about,
Yeah.
I tell people it is my intention to be a living diary for my kids and for anyone that comes behind my kids, so that they have a story about this family. And your story is along for the ride. How you do that, or like what it is to you, could be completely different.
Yeah.
But when I dodge politics, I remove part of the story that, while I may have that conversation with Piper and Xander, or Piper and Xander together, or Piper and Xander, Venus, and my dad, or you off the record, I don't put that here. And that's
it is a part of you.
But it is a part of me.
Yeah.
And I feel like that it's a it's
a missed opportunity.
It's a missed opportunity
Sure.
to share my perspective and what makes me, and what makes Venus and I's approach to parenting what it is.
Right.
So as I'm writing this stuff, it's all over the map.
Which
but I
are
was
kind of like our thoughts in general on the whole subject.
We fucking. It's all over.
Yeah.
But it was in the moment. It was cathartic because I was like, if I'm going to put this down on paper, Piper knows how I feel about these things.
What's the point of putting it on paper? Is what you're getting at.
Yeah.
If you're not going to use it for anything.
If I'm not gonna say it now, I'll be perfectly honest. Am I comfortable in copying pasting this, even though it's in text somewhere? Copying pasting this and putting it on Instagram? Not quite yet. I'm not quite there yet. But this will probably reach more people, oddly enough, than my Instagram.
All 6 of us.
Right. There's at least 3 of you. Hey, Tony Overbay, you're one.
And Dave.
And Dave and Nat.
And Nat.
There we go. We've
That's
covered the
audience.
entire subscription base. So in that moment in writing stuff, and like I got some out, and then I'm like, fucking. Well, if I keep going, I'm gonna be. I had a big day today of meetings and deliverables and shit at work, so I'm like, I do have to go to bed. So then I went to bed somewhere about 5, a little bit before 5. I think I spent about 30 to 45 minutes like writing stuff and crossing stuff out, and then I went back to bed. Overall, because I went to bed at 10, I felt like I got a good minute-wise. I think I got a full night's sleep, but good sleep
Broken up.
was completely broken up.
Yeah.
And certainly the amount of time I was probably staring into my eyelids, wondering how the fuck we're going to get out of this problem, like you, was probably more minutes than I could count. And it was certainly not good sleep, but it is what it is. Got up, started work. Work for me, I don't know for you what it was for you, but it was, while people weren't necessarily talking about it, there were a lot of people that were quick to irritate. Like, you could tell some people were raw from something that had happened. You know, whether they were excited about being that the guy that Trump won, they were excited, or that they were sad that Harris and Walz lost. Tough to say. No one really discussed that, but you could
it wasn't said out loud.
People had very short fuses. What was it like for you? Did you have any?
I had, today was a fairly mild day for me. I had a couple discussions. One was with Greg Cameron.
Oh, yeah.
Talked to him, and he was
Go anal.
Yeah,
that's right.
He was fired up.
Was he?
Yeah, which I totally expected that from him.
Yeah.
So I had a situation with work that I had to test my camera for Teams because of some.
Your laptop camera?
Some IT changes. No, my desktop. I don't really have a laptop, so I have a desktop that has like a Logitech camera on it.
Oh, okay.
But I was moving it to another computer, and I needed to test it out due to some IT changes.
Okay.
Let's just leave it at that.
Sure. Corporate secrets.
Yeah, so it was like, hey, Greg, you got a minute? I need to do a test video chat. And then that just blew up into a bunch of conversation. And then another coworker who is in the QA group came into the call, and we all fucking went nuts for a few minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I talked today was my like one-on-one with my manager, and that also just delved into like immediately.
Oh, yeah.
And it wasn't from me.
Yeah.
I didn't start the conversation.
Yeah.
So,
but you found
yes.
apples to apples with like-minded people, you would say? Or
absolutely. Okay. Everyone I talked to was like, what the fuck?
No.
So
certainly not to throw any of your coworkers under the bus. Right.
No, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. Everyone was of similar...
In the same pea pod.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was, my morning was spent avoiding
Sure. Yeah.
I didn't want to really read the news. I avoided launching Apple News on any of my devices.
Yep. Same.
I didn't care to read about that smug motherfucker.
Same. I did nothing.
I didn't want to see any fucking pictures of him. I was really hoping to see him not be a part of the conversation soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So to like have the realization that, cool, we've got 4 years of, first of all, who knows what.
Right.
And just another 4-year fucking news cycle of nut job bullshit coming of who knows what.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was my focus until the conversations. And then, and then even after those couple of meetings was just me still trying to avoid it.
Yeah.
So I just didn't want to like, I got it. He fucking, I guess he won.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I think the way I'm looking at it is like, what the fuck, America? You have chosen your fucking fascist wannabe dictator president. Let's see how bad you've shot yourself in the foot for the next 4 years.
Did you have any kind of interaction with the girls today on their way out the door?
I didn't see. First of all, the only person I saw this morning was Shanna, and it was rough.
Yeah.
Then she came home from work. She's having a rough day.
Concerned. Sure. Yeah.
She's having a rough day.
Sure. Yeah.
Very almost distant, like to the point I'm like, I said to her, are you upset with me? Or, I'm just trying to process all of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And my point of it is like, I feel like staying away from it was my way of sort of processing, like, yeah, well, I get it. Sure. But like, I don't want to delve into it.
Yeah.
And then at some point I have to not let the negativity creep in. And so I have to like sort of move on.
Yeah.
Talking about it is going to help, I think.
Yeah.
Here.
Sure. A lot of it, I felt a little, when I went to bed early, I did, and when I texted you, I did feel, because you know me, I'm not shy about politics. I am often one of the most read in about a lot of the policies and things that are going on. Like I don't care about opposing views, and I have a certain wonk need to be informed about differing perspectives. Certainly, foreign policy and world events and all that stuff.
Well, I feel like it needs to be said. We had a third sad dad. I feel like this needs to be said.
Oh, okay.
There was a third sad dad that was part of this group.
Yes.
Who was offered, come and do the podcast. We want to do this podcast. You should be a part of it. You're one of the of the guys.
Yeah.
And he turned it down.
Yes.
He is a MAGA Republican.
Yeah.
And his whole point was that we were all friends from playing Ingress days. And we all stopped playing Ingress for the most part. And his whole point was, in his mind, we're too different from a political standpoint. We can't be friends. We're not going to be friends after we stop playing this game.
If we don't have this,
then we're done.
Then we're done.
Yeah.
Right.
Ingress is the only thing that unites us.
Right.
And we didn't start the podcast to
ostracize or
be political in any way whatsoever.
Right.
We just wanted to do sad dads fucking talk about your life shit.
We are 40 minutes into the longest amount of time we have ever dedicated to politics, period.
Sure.
So,
yeah. And so
7 years in.
So there was an opportunity for us to have a third member of the Sad Dads Club podcast. who has a totally different view from you and I.
Oh, yes.
You and I, for the most part, agree on pretty much most everything from
Sure.
what I have seen.
Yes.
Maybe not everything, but I don't know. We don't delve into every issue.
Right.
But we are very like-minded in our thought process.
Sure.
You're much more analytical than I am. I think I come at things more emotionally.
It's due to my time in prison.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, because you're
Right.
prison books.
Butt sex.
But that could have been an interesting show, I think.
Yes.
Now, it would have been kind of two sort of liberal guys beating up on a Republican guy. But that could have been a whole different thing.
He was a friend.
Yeah,
I would not have abused someone. And that's...
No, yeah.
I think it's important to point out... Fucking mosquito. I think it's important to point out that... we can have differing opinions and perspectives without hating each other at the end of the day.
Sure.
So that this third person didn't want to even attempt what that would look like is odd to me because
we spent a lot of time together.
Fundamentally,
our families spent time together.
I think it's very clear the kind of person that I was, that you were. The oddball here is that we did not have any perspective into the third.
Yeah.
So
now also, I have to say, I grew up in a Republican household and was registered Republican because that's what I thought I was.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really care for a lot of the Republican policies, but when Trump kind of came in, I went, this is not what I thought it was. I didn't really ever focus myself on politics or think about politics much.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until I got older when I started to see that now politics can affect my kids, where I really started paying attention to what those kind of things could do to, say, my daughter.
Right.
Where I realized, I'm registered Republican, and this is not upholding any of the ideals that I want out of society for my children.
And I think, would you say, or be in agreement with that, once you became a dad, that some of your political perspectives did change? And
I would say so, for sure.
Right. I would certainly agree to that. And
you have a much more selfish view of life when you are not.
And a lot of that too, I think, comes with age. I think at some point, when I was trying to just detox from the event itself, when I was looking back at when did I start really caring about politics, I admittedly missed most of the Clinton and earlier stuff. It's like, cool guy that plays saxophone. Sure, whatever. Move on. He's got a wife that's fucking batshit crazy. Sure, whatever. My attention to detail when it came to politics started really happening at 9/11 and beyond.
Yeah.
Fair to say. I certainly wasn't a fan of George W. because this probably isn't fair, but as a person that considers himself an intellectual, I saw him as an inferior. Like that's a dumb man who's now the president of the United States.
Right.
And that's probably when I started to pay attention. And then because that was like, and then I started, and now I'm a married man, and now I'm an adult, and now I'm paying taxes. Now I'm starting to pay attention to the taxes that I'm paying, and 401ks and retirement and benefits and things like, oh shit, now I'm a fucking adult, and now I'm married, and now I'm paying attention.
Yeah, healthcare,
right?
like the whole
like
nine.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then I became a dad.
Yeah.
And not only did I become a dad, but I became a dad of a daughter.
Yeah.
And that moves all kinds of needles.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and the household in general will probably make fun of, and they continue to make fun of, well, dad never fucking cries. Dad never cries. I have my moments, absolutely 100%. And what I have found over time, after being a dad, is that I am extremely soft to child abuse, pet abuse, and anything that gets remotely close to that, it's like kryptonite to me. I immediately weaken and well up. While I may not just flat out weep, I did not have those triggers before becoming a dad or realizing I was such a dog parent, dog dad. So things have moved for me, certainly.
Well, in the last couple of years, the thing that really gets my gears going is watching people's abilities and rights sort of disappear.
Yes.
Because as time has marched forward, right, you've seen there's been the women's movement. We've had civil rights.
Black Lives Matter.
Like the civil rights movement in the 60s.
Yeah.
So all of these things have been progressive marches forward for people in general, right?
Yes.
Like women suffrage, like they weren't even allowed to fucking vote.
Right.
Up until whatever year that was. You know what I'm saying? That's bonkers, right?
We'll have our assistant look that up and put it up. Just kidding.
And like how black folks are have been treated over the years, right? I mean, it's just victimization on top of victimization.
Yes.
And then we saw gay marriage happen, and it was oh, that's fucking okay. This is great. We're
moving forward.
We're moving forward. We're like people are getting rights. Like
yes.
And then all of a sudden we have a women's right to choose ripped from them, even though it has had a 50-year or whatever. Like
the Roe versus Wade.
Yeah.
I don't know the year off the top.
I
want to
say it's like a 50-year-ish.
We'll have our
time
producer
frame
look that up as well.
Where it was the law of the land, right?
Yeah.
And like when I start seeing that kind of shit, that's when I start getting upset. Because now, like my children and my children's children, right,
have effectively or potentially lost
a thing. Yeah.
Yes.
An ability where it's nobody else's fucking business. And they don't, it doesn't affect anybody else.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
The fact that someone can go to church and be like, well, God's pro-life. Okay.
Well.
Have you read the fucking Bible? Because there are countless stories in the Bible of God killing everybody on earth or flooding the entire earth or killing you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, okay, he's pro-life.
Yeah. Indiscriminate war in the name of.
Yeah. Or just like acts of God that have killed everybody, floods the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Noah's Ark, like that whole thing. Like, okay, it doesn't make any sense. Like, you're talking out two sides of your mouth to tell other people what they can do that doesn't affect you in any way.
Yeah.
But yet, by telling someone they have to have a baby could affect your tax dollar. Right?
Right.
If it's a woman who can't afford to have a baby and is destitute from a financial standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
guess what? Now she's on Wix or whatever programs it is to help her and her children out. You have now helped in doing that.
Yeah.
You're not going to raise the child for this person.
And you don't want the safety nets there.
Right.
You don't want the social safety nets.
Right.
But you want the burden
Yeah.
on the person.
Yeah.
For what?
And then also, if they decide to have, now there are states where it's illegal, if they get an abortion, or even sometimes if they have a miscarriage, they are prosecuted. There has to be this is a Trump quote, there has to be a punishment for the woman. Wait, what?
Yeah.
So this is where I start to get pissed off. This is what upsets me.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, it's not the thing,
Yeah.
but when your whole entire, without ever saying it, but your entire platform is owning the liberals,
Yeah.
that is not a platform.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just to do something to spite an entire segment of the population.
Well, they're for this, so I'm for this, no matter what. And I don't really have a counter. I just don't want to be them.
Yeah, and
It's
then
like, that's
to make up stuff that feeds your
I have
base,
long.
it just frustrates me to no end.
You and I probably share a lot of the fundamental. I would, and here's what I took from, because in my early years, like 18 and up, I would have probably, if you'd have said, these are the characteristics of a Republican, most of those boxes, I would have checked Republican.
Yeah.
I can't recall the name that they call. It's like a fiscal liberal. Like I'm someone that believes that it is a responsibility for the person to not spend beyond their means. You should earn and pay for what you can, and you should always be doing what you can with trying to remove the amount of, I'm going to say freeloading, but that's not fair. If you can support yourself, you should be doing the most you can to support yourself.
Sure.
And if you need it, a social safety net.
Right.
And you and I have talked probably off record a number of times that there are always going to be, we've probably put this into the ether on here a number of times, there are always going to be outliers, abusers of the system at each end that either party or perspective will use to say, this doesn't work because those guys do this. And while that statement may be true, it is not respective of the majority whole that's in the middle.
And also, it happens in both
Right.
Republican world
it
and
happens,
the liberal world.
Right. It happens at both ends.
Yeah.
They'll say, you don't care about bringing up society as a whole, and they'll say, you've got a bunch of freeloaders who are sitting at home sucking on tax dollars that you're giving them, and they're going out and buying TVs or houses. Like,
that happens on both sides of the spectrum.
That happens on both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And what I have talked at length with my dad is that what we seem to be lacking currently is people that want to acknowledge that there is a huge, huge middle ground with a huge, huge populace of very smart people that can solve the majority of our problems if we acknowledge that we probably can't do anything about the outliers, but we can solve a great number of problems for society as a whole if we come together to talk constructively about what we can do about the 75% of us that do want a better way of life, a better way to happiness for everyone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's where last night's frustration just absolutely donkey punched me.
Well, the stuff that really gets me going is we were out over the weekend in the car, and I don't remember exactly where we were, but there was this we ran across both Harris
Demographics.
supporters
Yeah.
and Trump supporters. But in this one case, in a Trump supporter standpoint, it was, the pickups with all the flags.
Oh, yeah.
But this one pickup had like an A-frame in the bed of a printed graphic. And it was fucking hilarious because it showed a picture of Harris with the gas prices and a picture of Trump with the gas prices. Basically saying, well, the gas prices were lower with Trump. That was the crux of this truck's Trump support.
Right.
And it's comical. It's
Sure.
fucking comical.
There's no context, but sure, it's, yeah.
And that stuff just pisses me off because it's very misleading in general.
Oh, absolutely.
It's made up. It doesn't.
There's no context for time.
No.
Well, sure, that...
Because you know what happened during Trump's administration? There was a pandemic.
Yeah.
And the fucking gas prices fell through the floor because everyone was at home.
Not driving.
And not driving.
Right.
And in fact, I believe bulk oil prices went negative at one point.
Oh, boy.
And Trump actually called OPEC to tell them to stop production so that the prices would come back up.
Maintain, yeah.
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 So, it's super fucking misleading. So there's a lot of that kind of bullshit.
Did you see the stock market today?
No.
It doesn't help that argument because it went through the fucking roof. It went to 1,500 points. It was up 1,500 points. The Dow was up 1,500 points. Most financial sector Bitcoin stocks.
Because you know why?
Deregulation.
Yeah.
Lack of control.
Tax breaks for all the corporations.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They're...
Instead of them paying their fair fucking share.
Big business is like, oh yeah, bring that motherfucker back in. And the common yous and me's are like,
I could use a tax break.
Yeah, fucking look at the gas prices. Look at everything is going up. Fucking fuck. Like, this is a signal. Like at the moment the honeymoon is over, where the mathematicians or the algorithms realize that the jig is up, they're cashing out.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, how much more debt are we going to collect over this next 4 years?
I think on Monday I saw an economist like there's
also does
no
he
plan.
not know how tariffs work? Does the fucking man not know how a fucking tariff works?
I don't think so.
Because he seems to think somehow whatever corporation or China, the government somehow is going to pay the tariff. That's not how this works.
Yeah.
It's a fucking tax on the American people because we end up paying more because the goods cost more when they come to us.
Yeah, I thought that $5.99 Temu thing is now going to be $13.99. Do you really want it? That's a really nice snowboard helmet.
I don't think the man knows either. I think either he's playing everybody, like he's smart. I think at some point, I kind of go back and forth, okay?
Yeah.
That he's the dumbest motherfucker ever, or the dude knows exactly what he's saying and just playing everybody to get support.
I did a number of times last night before I punched out, went, I wonder if this is like 2016 when he was like, I'm running for the grift. And oh shit. I won? I do wonder if both times he was actually thinking, I'm running for the grift. Wait, fuck. I won? I did, and because
he was
like
when
you,
2016, it was a joke that he was going to run.
Oh yeah,
Trump should run.
Yeah, fucking. Really?
Ha 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 ha.
Yeah,
that was the fucking consensus. Really.
Good luck with that. Yeah.
So like, I think maybe in the first term, it was sort of like, whoa, what happened here? I can't believe I won. Kind of a thing.
Wow. Oh, because he liked his acceptance speech. 2016 was like no one's awake. Yeah. He's walking out and he looks. Everyone standing next to him. It looks fucking like they just got up from a
deer
nap.
in the headlights.
Yeah, fucking.
What?
Well, of course I won. I'm the bestest candidate to, of course, winnings and the best campaigns. Fucking by my stakes. I do wonder if he's like, all of this stuff can be written off to a campaign fund, to a PAC, and we'll host the stuff at my thing so they're tax breaks, and I'm not paying for anything, and I can write this all off to a campaign, and fuck, if I win, no one's. Oh shit!
Yeah.
Shit. And here we are.
And the other thing that frustrates me about listening to that man talk is like he talks like he's in third grade. And I don't know if like half of America is just so fucking stupid that they're also third graders and they're just like, like playground fucking bullshit talk. Like him talking about fucking, what's his name's junk. Arnold Palmer's
Arnold
it's like,
Palmer.
How is that acceptable for a 34 count felony convicted felon and a guy who is known to be a rapist? How is it acceptable for that to even be part of a conversation at a public fucking rally?
Yeah.
And yet
I don't know.
These are the things that like drive me absolutely crazy. And he talks like he's a third grader. His demeanor, the way he like puts down people like he's a schoolyard bully all the time, calling everybody names. But then if somebody comes at him, oh my God, can you believe what they said? And it's like, it's all theatrics. It's all theatrics to get support.
Yeah.
And he immediately, when he got shot in the ear, it was like he immediately recognized, oh, I better come up with the thumb up and like the fight thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like almost to the point to where people thought that was staged.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because how do you go from getting shot in the ear to like, we gotta fight,
Yeah.
There's so many things about this person that are not redeeming that I just can't understand how you would put your support for him as the leader of the free world. It bewilders my mind. I don't understand.
Have you looked at any data yet? Like have you
analysis of?
Yeah. Have you still avoided?
Yeah.
Me too.
I can't.
And I felt a little bit guilty because as someone that we've discussed earlier, I'm not afraid of elections, but this one, it
feels personal.
I felt a little bit guilty of like I'm going to bed, and it wasn't because I didn't care. It was because
you cared too much.
I cared too much.
You cared a lot.
I have avoided. Even
analysis breakdown,
right? Like where we're now. I have seen towards the tail end of today, outside the financial news of the markets, obviously because that's what I'm in. The financial markets going absolute ape shit over the election results, but I do wonder if that would have been the same either way, because historically, new president means markets go up. I avoided I'm just not. I'm not ready. I
No.
don't want to know. I don't want to know full details. Now, I did get an Instagram from Tracy, Mike's sister, that had broken down. God, I think it was education exit polling statistics. That was like, I did have, going back to the conversation about interaction with Melly or your wife, Piper's and I's interaction before she left for school today was simply facial expressions. It was exactly that. It was the head nod to the side and the raised eyebrow, like,
and a huffy breath.
And a huffy breath, like, fuck. I'm sorry, but unspoken words.
That's exactly how I have to say it. I'm sorry.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
Yes, Venus. Without throwing her under the bus, it hurts.
Yeah,
she is very pained.
Oh yeah.
By this, and when she got home from work, and her and I briefly interacted because I dropped off Xander for a band thing. She's still very emotionally raw, and she said she's exhausted. She's like, I'm spent.
Yes.
Like I feel all the things, and I'm left with nothing left in the
It's been
tank.
9 years of this bullshit.
Yeah. And it's like circle back. Like there was so much hope for
dashed hope,
an opportunity to make progress that is now regressed into something most of this country, if not all of this country, has already experienced. We've already seen what happens from this administration.
Yeah. Except now,
and most of those people,
it's going to be worse.
Right. Most of those people who participated in that administration have already written books, written articles, given interviews, and said it was an absolute fucking train wreck.
Right. Dumpster fire.
So,
Trumpster fire?
Ooh, shit. Good on you, sir. Hashtag Trumpster fire. Not a sponsor. Going to
the Trumpster fire folks.
Yeah.
If you're listening.
Man, fuck. If you got this far, we're at the end. Do I have a moment to read the thing?
Yeah, read the thing.
Okay.
Make it up.
So this is the comprehensive.
Is this your?
This is the notes.
Is this your
manifesto?
Your Unabomber manifesto?
Unabomber manifesto. Politics is messy, disenfranchising, polarizing. Necessary to give our democracy and freedoms guideposts and rails. Less and less of a one-size-fits-all solution when leveraging an ancient process without affording modernized updates. I am a husband and a father of 2 children. I'm a middle-class white man. I'm not a man that subscribes to a faith. My code and way of moral guidance comes from a codex taught to me by those around me and those who raised me. Those threads are love, respect, compassion for others, honor, curiosity, intellect, and accountability. For me, given those ideals and touchstones, my priorities going into most elections is what does right by me and my family? What does right to the citizenry as a whole per my duty to the country? Let's get a level set. I am a person concerned and versed on most of the talking points of this election, and by proxy, the social dynamic bullet points most elections used in the modern era. I am not dismissing their value, nor ignorant of their existence. I simply have to prioritize their merit based off the touchstones mentioned prior. That being said, there was clearly one candidate that did not value or respect my wife and daughter's right to body sovereignty. For that issue alone, I would step in front of any risk to defend that right of autonomy and continue to cast any vote needed to uphold it. I did not see eye to eye with every issue and policy of the Harris-Walz ticket, and even less with the Trump-Vance one. Per last night, the bulk of the country, from multiple demographics, genders, creeds, and income strata, did not align with my choice using the democratic process afforded to us. I can accept that as part of the great experiment. I have concerns about what that choice of our nation means when I travel abroad. I have already experienced it. I have concerns about what that means to my economic stability. I have already experienced it with the best this administration had to offer and saw no credible plan from the incoming version 2.0 one. I have concerns about what that means to having a functional executive branch, given the previous appointees effectively admitted to and publicly distanced themselves from the previous attempt at governing, labeling it nothing short of lunacy and abuse. I have concerns about our legal system that appears to have shown time and again that there's a system for the rich and popular and a system for everyone else. I would have alternate concerns for the stability and prosperity relative to the other ticket had they won. What will keep me up nights now is the president-elect's known platform to remove and or limit my wife and daughter's agency to self and their identity based on their personal beliefs that they, in fact, know what's best, perceiving them to be less than. I'm not frustrated or sad. My choice of candidate didn't win. So much as I'm saddened and disappointed that my values of equality, liberty, and blind compassion for others, especially women, was and is such an outlier. The challenge will continue. I will press on to support and magnify the voices for equality and independence. My duty as a father, husband, brother, and friend deem it so. Clearly, into the headwinds is where my journey appears to take me. Please register to vote. Please ask questions. Please keep trying to be better and be better to others. My name is Jason. I am the Lord Fu, and I approve this message.
And on that note,
You should return the cart.
should wash your hands.
Wash your ass.
Check your oil, Tony.
Stay up to date on your shots.
Make the call if you need to.
Register to vote.
And do the kindness.
Pick up a broom. And we'll catch you next week.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye.